All right, it's all yours.
Thank you, Bettina. Good afternoon again, everyone, or maybe a few of you for the first time. We did invite prior instructors to this session in case they wanted to try some of these advanced techniques that they may not have tried in the past. So we will get started. All right. So today we will start with screen sharing of videos. We'll review the basics and I'll do a live demo of screen sharing. Then I'll describe the different techniques you can use to share videos in particular. I'll also touch on audio files as well. And I'll also touch on how to add videos to your slides. There are different techniques for that as well. Then we will go over a couple of polling techniques in Zoom. We have a quick poll and the more formal multiple choice poll. And then we will finish by explaining breakout rooms and doing a live demo of breakout rooms so you can get a sense of what they're like if you've never been in one. All right, so Zoom screen sharing. Just a quick review of it. You as the instructor will be a Zoom co-host. So the controls that you'll see, the unchanged ones are the microphone and video controls, the chat window, the reactions, and the leave button. They all work the same. The share screen button, which we'll talk about a lot, that is that big green button, and that will be enabled for you. There are some other buttons for breakout rooms and polls, but the staff, the OLLI staff person assigned to your class will usually be the one to use those. And the security and the record are buttons that only the staff will use. You don't need to worry about them. And we've already covered the live transcript button. So again, just to reiterate, there's different scenarios for sharing your screen. You can share either one application at a time and select just that one window, or you can share your screen for multiple applications. And today, because we're talking about sharing videos in particular, this is the more likely scenario that you will have, because you might start in PowerPoint or Keynote and then, for example, have a link to a video in your slide deck. And when you click on it, it will automatically open up your browser window to display, say, a YouTube video. So there's two applications involved, PowerPoint and your web browser. So when you are sharing your entire screen, just be aware that your entire desktop is visible. So you want to clean it up as much as possible. And the way you would do it is you'd select a first application to work with and then maximize that on the screen. And then you can switch to another app, or when you click on links, it will automatically switch to the other app. But you'll see plenty of examples of that today. Oh, hold on. I'm using a different keyboard today. Bad idea. Always practice with the keyboard and computer you're planning to use for teaching. So I just wanted to review the steps of screen sharing, and then I'll do a live demo of it. So the first thing you're going to do is click on the green screen share button on the Zoom toolbar. Then you get a big white box and you'll select the application window, or you'll select screen, or on a Mac, it's labeled desktop to share your entire desktop. If you're sharing a video or an audio, then you need to click the check boxes at the bottom of that screen share menu. The box is labeled optimize for video and share audio. And then you press the blue share button at the lower right corner. It's also important that you remember to click the mouse in the application that you are sharing. So for example, if it's PowerPoint, you need to click your mouse on your first slide, so that will enable you to advance to the next slide. Otherwise, you'll click your mouse or press the next key, and nothing will happen. So we've talked about the screen share controls in the past. I'll just remind you, it's the green. You'll start by seeing the green and red bar, and then there's the larger toolbar either above or below it, and that green red bar can either be at the top or the bottom of your screen. You can move it. You can toggle from the top to the bottom and vice versa. You use the stop share, the red portion of that bar, to end your sharing. And I'm going to talk more today about using new share to change your sharing as a shortcut. Rather than stopping your share and then doing screen share again, you can just pick a different share if that's convenient to you. So, and then there are these screen share controls. If you click on more in the toolbar, and the ones that I'll show you today in particular are hide video panel to show and hide that gallery view of participants while you're sharing your screen. You can hide the toolbar. If the toolbar is in your way, you can hide it. And if you forget to do the share sound or optimize for video clip, you can go into this and check it rather than having to start your share again. So I am going to do a new share. So you can see on my screen, I clicked on new share, and I get the white box that has all the things that I can share on my computer, right? So let me use annotate here. So
Howard, that's really small.
Yeah, it is. I don't think I have a way to make it bigger.
You can't.
Well, let me keep going. So you can see that if I click on a window, it changes what I'm going to share. So I know it's tiny, but that upper left corner is always going to be where you share your entire screen. It will be labeled screen on a Windows PC and desktop on a Mac. And then below that, there will be other windows for other applications. So I have my PowerPoint slide. I also have folders, and I have a browser window, a Firefox browser window open. And you'll see there's a little icon in the lower right corner of each of these boxes to give you a hint as to what they are. So I'm going to go ahead and click on share screen. Also, because I know I'm going to be sharing videos with you later, I'm going to go ahead and click on optimize for video. So I did that in the bottom of the screen, the lower left corner of the screen. And you see when I clicked it, it turned blue, the background turned blue. I unclicked it, and I click it again. And now I'm going to click on the blue share in the right lower corner. So now I'm back sharing my entire screen. So a couple tips when you're sharing your screen. Again, close any application that you're not planning to share. It'll make it easier to find what you will be sharing. And there's less risk of people seeing any personal information. Now, there's a tip that you can use to switch applications while you're sharing. So on a Windows computer, you can press and hold the Alt key and then press the Tab key. And you see what pops up on my screen is boxes, little windows of all the things that are running on my computer right now. And as I hit the Tab key, it advances. You can see there's a white box that gets drawn around each one. I know it's a little hard to see, but it's there. And this is how you can switch to a particular application when you're sharing your entire computer screen. So I'm going to go back around and it circles around. So I have to make sure I stop in the right place. So I'm back on my slides. So if you don't do that, oh, and by the way, the Mac has an equivalent using the Command and Tab keys or the F3, the function 3 key, to display the thumbnails like I just showed you. So there is an equivalent on a Mac. So if I don't do that and I need to switch, then I have to get out of presentation mode and then navigate to some other application on my screen, like my browser. So just keep that in mind. If you need to move to specific applications, there are different ways to do it, and you need to figure out what's going to be the most comfortable for you. And we can practice this in your one-on-one practice session, right? If this is sort of new to you, depending on what you need to do in your classroom, we can practice this. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my slides and go back to slideshow mode. So now the slideshow has taken up the entire screen. So I'm going to pause for questions at this point.
Not seeing any questions yet.
No questions? Okay.
But
Now
I have a question though, but just can you repeat? So would you want to go from application to application? Is you just do one of these, like I'm on a Mac, so I just do an F3 and then all of these, I'd have these different choices, or is there a command that you're looking for?
No, F3 would probably be the easiest thing to do on a Mac, because then you get to see the little thumbnails of all the running applications on your computer. But as you saw, the more applications you're running, the more thumbnails you have, and they're pretty tiny, so it can be hard to figure out what they are.
Does everybody see what I'm doing? Does everybody see that all the thumbnails I'm choosing from?
No, they don't. So I am using a special option of Zoom that we generally don't tell instructors how to use. It is not the default. And it allows you to see the Zoom screens that I see as the host, as the co-host.
Okay.
Because it's easier it's the way that we can most easily show you what it would look like to you, but your students will not see what you're doing on your screen.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now I'm also going to do a quick demo, so what you're seeing now, I'm hovering over the green and red bar at the top of my screen. Now let's say that it was in my way. I could click on the little arrow. There's a little arrow on the left end of the green bar, and when I click it, it moves the bar to the bottom of my screen. I can also slide that bar sideways on the screen. Now, when I hover over it, it also opens up the full toolbar. And that is, for example, where I could open up the chat window. And you are seeing what I see right now. But normally when you do this, you will be the only one to see the chat window that pops up. And as you notice, I can move it around the screen. So you'll be able to do that even while you're presenting. So for example, if like I'm doing right now, you have a slide that you're pausing on for questions, you could bring up the chat window and look at it, while your moderator is reading the questions so that you can see them at the same time, if you wanted to do that. And then when you're done, you just click on the red X on the chat window to close it. So just, so you're aware of those things. All right. Any other questions? Virginia Lee you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I was just wondering how the on the Mac, the Command tab would differ from just using New Share.
It does. I mean, it's another option. It's the equivalent. So whichever you are more comfortable using,
Okay, thank you.
right? I'm just giving folks options. New share is definitely, I think, something that, you know, if you're going to be switching, could be a lot easier to use. All right. So now I'm going to get into sharing PowerPoint slides with videos. So when you're sharing slides, again, you're going to present with slideshow. This assumes that you're not using slide notes. I'm not going to cover presenter view if you have two displays. If you have two displays and you want to go over presenter view, plan to do that at your one-on-one practice session and let me know in advance so that I can set up to be on two screens myself so that it's easier for me to explain things to you because it can get kind of hairy. When you're sharing PowerPoint slides, there is a shortcut to get to slideshow. I mentioned this the other day. On Windows, F5 and Shift F5 and the Mac, Command Return. There's also at the bottom of the PowerPoint window, there's a little screen icon that you can click. I'll add the icon to this slide so you know what to look for when I post this slide. Okay, let's get into sharing videos. So there are 5 different ways to share videos, and I'm going to try to explain the pros and cons of each one. And ideally, you're going to figure out which one is going to be the simplest for you to use. So the first way to share a video is to play them from your browser tab, right? Let's say you don't even have slides to show. So all you have to do is open up a browser tab and, you know, if it's a YouTube link, you know, have it ready in your browser before the class starts. And then all you have to do is switch to your browser and start playing the YouTube video. I will, by the way, cover some details on playing YouTube and sharing YouTube later on today. The next method to share video is to embed a video in your slide presentation. The downside to doing that is it can make either PowerPoint or a Keynote file very large. And if you're planning on posting the slide on the slide deck on your website, or some instructors even email their slide deck to students, you could easily run into issues because videos tend to get really big really fast. So ideally, you're going to most people are going to just be using YouTube video links or maybe video links of other types that they can include the link in their slide, which is the next option, is to insert the URL hyperlink to the video in your slide. And I'll show you some quick examples of how to do that in PowerPoint and in Keynote. Another way you can do this is to insert a link to a local video file. So you download the video to your computer and you can have a link to it in your slide deck. So the one reason that I can think of to do that, and maybe it's not as relevant these days, is if you have a possibly iffy web Wi-Fi connection that might drop. You know, videos can take a long time or take up a lot of bandwidth. So if you were to download the video in advance, then that would be less strain on your bandwidth. But you know, we're on Zoom. If your bandwidth isn't sufficient for Zoom, it probably doesn't matter whether the video is on your computer or not. So this may not be as relevant, but you know, there will be some folks, you know, teaching in person. Hopefully, we're planning in the winter term. So I just mentioned this just to have it as reference in the training. And then the last way is to use the Zoom share screen, sorry, not screed, a video file on your computer. And the one reason you might do this is if you are a videographer and you have created videos of your own, say you used your iPhone or your iPad to make videos, and you have the video, you've done some editing on it, and it's on your computer, and you don't have a slide deck to present, you may just want to share that edited video directly from your computer. So we have these different ways, and I will give demos of these different techniques and the pros and cons to them. So the first example is embedding a video, hopefully a relatively short one. And I'm going to make sure that I have set. Yes, I have share sound, not my video clip. I just want to make sure. If I didn't do that, if I didn't check those, then as soon as I played this, someone would say, I can't hear the video.
In the North Carolina Museum of Art, and looking at this beautiful painting by Joseph
And
notice the clouds and how heavy the impasto is.
now
and look closely at this detail.
the volume level is not too high on that one, is it?
No.
And that may be just the way that that particular video was made. Now, one of the things I want to point out is that when you're playing a video that's embedded like this, there's no way to enlarge it. So whatever size it is what people are going to see on their screen. So you see it taking up maybe a quarter of your screen.
And how heavy the impasto is.
So,
and look closely at this.
I mean, the one advantage to having an embedded video is that you have this
right here.
thumbnail of it
Museum of Art.
in your slide deck, so you kind of know what the video is. That's one reason why people like to embed videos.
In the North Carolina.
So what you can do is just enlarge the embedded video so it takes up as much of your screen as possible. So now here's the same video.
Notice the clouds and how heavy the impasto is.
But there's no way for you to increase the volume on it, correct?
Notice.
Okay, now the next method is to share your entire screen or desktop and switch apps. So I'm in PowerPoint right now, and I'm going to switch from PowerPoint to my browser. Now, the nice thing is that when you have a link in your PowerPoint or your Keynote, if you click on the video, you might get a little warning message, and you just say, click on yes, and it will open the video.
Notice the clouds,
and I can now
and how heavy
make it
the
full
impasto
screen.
is.
So you can see that's the advantage of having a link. And when I'm sharing my screen, it will automatically open up the video player. I can maximize that on my screen. And as soon as the video is over, it goes back to a smaller size so I can see my slides again. And then if there's another link on that page, I'll close that window. Now I can have a link to a YouTube video. I'm not sure if this is on my computer or not. I think it is.
We are in the North Carolina Museum of Art.
So it's the same video,
This
but
beautiful painting by Joseph Cave.
again, just a different way of doing it.
Clouds and how heavy the impasto is, and look closely at this detail right here.
Now it leaves my browser window open when I'm done. So all you need to do is close the browser window. Kathy?
You're muted.
Are you?
Can you hear me?
I'm sorry, I had turned my volume down. I'm
We've been
sorry.
trying to get your attention for like
We have
5
been
minutes.
trying to get your attention because there have been questions and you have been just ignoring us.
So that's a really good example of the fact
Yes.
that teachers can't see the students in the gallery window while they are teaching. So it's really
Okay.
important to have a moderator
I'm
that they are there to interrupt and help with your
really
class.
glad it happened. I make no apologies. I
That's
actually
okay.
turned my volume. I thought I had been turning it up, and instead I was turning it down. I was kind of wondering why I couldn't hear the videos anymore.
So So one of the questions that was asked during the embedded video
Yeah, I can go back.
slide
Yeah.
was, can you turn the volume up on an embedded video?
Yes, so I'm back in the embedded video, and at the right, it's maybe hard to see. Let me turn my annotations on again. So at the right side of the screen, oh, this is weird. In the right corner, lower right corner, you'll see that in a second. When I mouse over it, you see a volume control. So that's the volume control for the video. So I can set it, all the way up or
Notice the
maybe halfway.
clouds, and how heavy the impasto is.
I'd say generally when you're figuring out volume levels of videos, it's good to set it no more than about 2/3 to 3/4, just in case it's really loud. But you should be playing the videos in advance and know if there's one that's particularly loud or soft, so you can plan to adjust the volume before you start playing it. So, just make a note of that. Other questions?
Not seeing in the chat.
This is Virginia, if I could ask. It seemed to me that both the quality of the video and the audio was better when it was just a hyperlink, and then you clicked on the hyperlink or URL to the video rather than having it embedded in the slide. Or was just that my imagination?
I think it's going to vary from video to video.
Okay.
And I mean, I think, you'll have to be the judge. The one thing I will point out is that when you play videos, you're sharing your screen and you're playing a video, that often the first couple of seconds of the video might look a little blurry to viewers. It'll look fine to you, but the class, the students might see it a little blurry on their computer. It might depend on their internet bandwidth as well. But eventually after, sometimes it's 10 or 15 seconds, the video will come into focus for them, right? You will always see it in focus.
And I have a question about that. If that is the situation, can you go ahead and let's say the video is only 30 seconds long. Can you go back to the beginning of the video and start again then? I'm assuming, just so everybody has the full correct view of the video.
Sure, right? So, the video finished playing and I can start it again. I think it automatically
Notice the clouds,
advances the play
and how
control
heavy
to
the
the start of
impasto
or
is.
resets it to the start of the video after it's done. So, I mean, that applies to an embedded video. If you're doing a link, a web link, sorry. Let me do this one again. It depends on what, how it's playing it, but usually there will, see in this case, the control is a little different, but I can advance it. Yeah, the controls. So here's a case you can see on my screen that the video controls are kind of in the way of the Zoom controls, block the video controls. So one thing I can move that video player, I can make it be full screen.
We are in the North Carolina Museum of Art.
And interesting, when it went full screen, I don't see the Zoom controls right now. So I have to minimize that window. I mean, so clearly there are a lot of things that are going to be sort of quirky, and it's going to depend on the source of your video, whether you're on a Mac or a Windows PC, what browser you're using. There's a lot of variables. It's not rocket science, but you just need to practice with the videos that you plan to show. And again, I encourage you to do that, especially before your practice session. So if there are some quirky things that you want to figure out how to do or work around, bring those questions with you to your practice session. Any other questions?
I actually have another question.
Sure.
It seems to me, and please tell me if I'm wrong, that the easiest thing to do might be just to upload, create your own account if you don't already have it on YouTube and upload a video to there, and then just have YouTube ready to go. So you're sharing a YouTube screen with your video and you just press play. So you are right there. Do you agree with that? What are your thoughts on that?
So what is the source of that video file? Did you create it yourself?
Either if I'm creating it myself or if I'm using a video that's already on YouTube.
Right. So if it's already on YouTube, you just, find the video on YouTube and copy the link into your slide deck.
And then if I click on it, I'm just wondering if it's in my slide deck, if it isn't easier just to keep the YouTube page open separately, so I could just quickly toggle over to that instead of clicking on the link and having it go through the process of opening up in YouTube.
Well, I'll click on this YouTube video again so you can kind of judge that.
Okay, thank you.
So, right, the first thing I need to do is I would want to
time to help people
maximize.
customize and save with Liberty Mutual.
Let me mute this. Right, so I had to maximize the YouTube video, right? So you need to remember to do that regardless of what video player you're doing. I'll have some tips about the ads, right? Because you need to be able to, avoid showing too many ads to your students if you can. So, and once the video's over, I always make sure that I pause the video when I'm done, so that I know that it's not playing anymore. And then I exit full screen. So now, I can just click on my slides, even though the browser window is open. If I click on the slide deck, I'm back in slides. So the advantage to having links in your slide deck is that you don't have to find the other window on your computer, right? You click on it, it automatically opens up your browser to that video and it's kind of ready to go. And then when I'm done, I can just click back on the slide and I'm there again. But you all have to be the judge of what you are most comfortable with.
What if you're not using a slide deck?
Right. So if you're not using the slide deck, what I would recommend is that you have your videos. If let's say you have 3 videos, you queue them up in separate browser tabs so that, as soon as you play the first one, and when you're done with it, you can either close that browser tab or just move on to the next browser tab to play the next video, right? The goal here is to do as little fumbling around on your computer while you're in front of the class as possible. Have as many things ready to go, and it's just a click away to get to the next video or to switch from video to your slides. I know another technique some people have used is, you could have links to your videos in a browser bookmarks. You could have a folder in your browser bookmarks for all the videos that you're going to play in a given day, in a given class. And then you just open up your browser bookmarks and click on those to get to each video. So that's another technique you could use. All right. I'm going to move on here. So adding videos to PowerPoint. So this is just a quick example of how to do that. So you highlight the text in your slide that you're going to use. So maybe it's the word video. And then you use the insert link menu in PowerPoint. And it will give you a menu that looks like this, where you can put in the URL for example, the YouTube video. You can change the text on the, what's used that people see. I mean, I typically like to use like a word video in the slide deck and not have the whole URL for that's being played, because students, they're not going to type in this crazy URL. They're going to go to your slides, hopefully, or you're going to send them the link to the video in an email. Okay. There's a similar option in Keynote. You highlight the text that you're going to use, and in Keynote, it's the format, add link, web page. And again, you put the URL for the web page there. So it's really pretty simple to add these links to videos. I'm going to pause to see if there are any more questions, because I'm going to go on to a couple of other PowerPoint tools. So any more questions about displaying videos? I'll have a couple more tips too at the end. Okay, so I'll just make you aware of PowerPoint. In slideshow mode, there is a tiny toolbar in the lower left corner, I think, that has a highlighter and a pen. You can play around with that if that's maybe easier for you to use than the annotations in Zoom. So if you wanted to highlight something on a slide, that might be an easier option for you. Some tips on sharing web pages. So if you're sharing, an actual web page rather than a YouTube video, again, it's handy to have some user-friendly words in your slide deck rather than the whole URL that's hard for people to type out. Another tip is, when you go to that web page, the text is small, then you can use the browser zoom feature to magnify the view of that page on the screen, right? So the default is 100%. You could change that to maybe 125% or 130%, so that the text is bigger when you're sharing your screen for people to see. Okay, a couple of tips on YouTube videos. One of the most important reminders is to turn off autoplay, because by default, once you finish playing one video, YouTube likes to play up another one that it thinks you might like to view, of a similar topic. So the autoplay is in the bottom of the actual video in the toolbar here, and when it's turned on, it's set to the right-hand side, and is like a triangle. You want it to be, that little slider to be on the left-hand side, and to be the pause, the two vertical bars to indicate that autoplay is turned off. When you are ready to play a YouTube video, again, be prepared to adjust the YouTube volume, which is at the bottom of the toolbar. And one of the things that you need to do is to mouse over that microphone to get the microphone control, to get the volume control to actually pop up. That's, I don't know, they changed that somewhere along the line. It's a little obscure that you have to mouse over that to control the volume. Be aware if there are going to be ads played at the start of your video, so you can skip them as soon as possible or mute them. If you're only playing a part of the video, make note of the start and end times so that you can, not fumble with that as you're playing it for the class. And again, the YouTube controls are at the bottom. So you need to know about the volume control and mute, and also that full screen control on the right-hand side, the little sort of broken box. When you click on that, it goes full screen. Some common problems that you might run into, that the video is not visible. So especially if you started from a slide deck and you click on a YouTube video link in your slides and people don't see the slides, chances are pretty high that instead of sharing your entire screen in Zoom, you only shared your PowerPoint or Keynote slide deck. So if that happens, stop the video and stop sharing if you need to, or you can use new share. But if you're flustered, just stop video and start over again with the sharing. If you're a little confused, chances are very good that the OLLI staff person will be able to walk you through the basic steps. If the video looks or sounds choppy, or there's no sound at all, it's pretty common that you forgot to check optimize for video clip on that first screen share window. And if the video continues to play after you close, I mean, some people will even close the video, the browser window, and they'll, or minimize it, and they'll still hear a video playing. And that's probably because you forgot to turn autoplay off. So make sure you get in the habit. It can be really disconcerting to hear a video and it's playing over your voice and you can't find the video in your browser windows. Another reason why you should have a browser, when you open your browser, you should only have the minimal tabs you need for the class. You don't want to have like a dozen tabs open that aren't related to the class, because it'll just make it harder to navigate. If you decide to download videos, and it's not a very common thing, but there is this free open source software. It's easy to use. If you think you want to download videos, you can contact me and I can walk you through this. A couple more tips briefly on audio or DVDs. So for sharing audio, there's an option in Zoom to start sharing advanced, and you can share your computer sound. And so if you have the Spotify app on your computer, for example, or it's playing in a browser window, you can share the computer sound only. You don't have to share the video too. So you can play the audio in an application or from your web browser. But I will say that it's often not the greatest audio quality. Another option is to play audio from a device that's near your microphone. But that's even harder. I mean, the audio quality of that is going to be much worse than sharing the audio sound. And the way you do that in Zoom is when you click on the share screen button, at the top of the screen, there is this, little menu, little selections. The default is basic. If you click on advanced, then you see these options. So you can share computer audio. If you have a video file that I was talking about earlier, you can click on video and just share a video file. And for those of you who have a second camera, this is where, if you probably know this already, but this is where you could share a second camera. All right. If you're going to be playing DVDs, I highly recommend using this free open source software. It's called VLC Media Player, and this link is to a website where you can download it. It works on Mac or Windows, and if you plan to play DVDs and are not familiar with this, you can schedule special training or be sure we cover it in your practice session. It's really pretty easy to use, and it's the most foolproof way that I've found to be able to play DVDs while sharing Zoom. Okay, I will pause for questions again. No questions? All right. We will move on. So now we're going to cover Zoom polls. This will not take nearly as long as the previous section did, so not to worry. So we've come to call quick polls a shorthand for using the reactions yes, no, slower, faster options. And the reason it's quick is that you can do it, on the spur of the moment. You don't have to prepare for it in advance. You can ask any question at all, and just ask people to click on yes or no. So let's see. I'm going to ask the question, how many people are planning to use breakout rooms in their class? So click on yes or no if you could.
So
Okay.
while you're all doing that real quick, you can see on Howard's screen that there are now black boxes, which are the Zoom windows. So he has probably the participant window open, and the Zoom toolbar is that long black one across the bottom. So that's what your student will see when you have a Zoom window open over top of your PowerPoint. So earlier, Howard was showing us the chat window because he had the feature turned on that it was showing his Zoom windows. He's turned it off now during that last Q&A session. And now we're seeing the black boxes that would show up for your students. There's a couple of chat messages that are coming in that are about this quick poll.
Sure, go ahead.
One person says they're not seeing the poll. So it's not an actual poll. You're going to open your reactions icon on your toolbar and use the green and red plus or yes and no buttons in the reactions button.
So I was the one that said that when in previous meetings that I've been in, when there's a poll, it just shows up on the screen. So this is different than that?
Well, yes. So, I mean, we call this a quick poll because it's basically for yes, no.
Oh, sorry. That's what you were saying. Okay.
We will do a demo of the formal Zoom poll very, very soon, very shortly.
Thank you.
But I just wanted, go ahead.
The other question is there a way to adjust the skin tone in the reactions icon? And yes, and they have recently moved it. So if you click on the reactions icon, and then on the top row, there's 3 little dots for more. If you click there, at the bottom of that new window that pops up, you'll see skin tone : and a thumbs up, and you can click on that thumbs up and change your skin tone preference.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you, Bettina.
I have a quick question about this.
Yep.
In regards to where you say briefly, the counts will appear. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Actually, they have changed it. So in the past, in the participants window, the counts actually are sticky now. So the counts should, oh gosh, here's the thing. So one of the reasons why we encourage or stress to our members to upgrade to the latest version of Zoom is that different versions of Zoom cause little things like this to not work quite right. And ideally, if everyone were on the most recent version of Zoom, or at least a fairly recent version, the numbers, the counts you'll see in the participants window on the yes, no, they stay until they're reset by either the staff person or the instructor. But in the past, sometimes people with older versions of Zoom, those numbers just disappeared after like 10 seconds. So hopefully, enough of our members have upgraded to the most recent version of Zoom that's not an issue with these counts. It was pretty annoying for a time period there, I think in the winter term especially.
Yeah, they used to go away as fast as the reactions did. But you can see even in the reactions icon now, they've kind of changed the way it even looks. Like there's little boxes around those buttons now so that they look differently, so that they, you know, that they're treated differently. I don't know.
Okay. Okay, let us move on to the Zoom poll. So a
Oh.
Zoom poll. Whoops.
You didn't actually get the tally.
Oh.
So there's 5 yeses and 7 nos for breakout room question.
Okay, well, I would ask the no's if they could possibly stay on at least till we do the demo of breakout rooms, so we have more people to do the demo of them in a couple minutes. Okay, thank you, Bettina. So the Zoom poll, this is a formal kind of poll with multiple choice questions. The answers can be either single choice or multiple choices for the answers. So, you know, either like radio button versus check boxes. And the instructor, the OLLI staff can share the results with the participants. So Bettina, this is an example of what the results look like, but we'll share that in a minute. So Bettina, if you want to go ahead and do a sample poll, and let me.
So you now should be seeing the poll on your screen over top of the PowerPoint.
I should point out that you as the instructor will not be able to respond to the poll.
Right. Anybody who's listed as a host or a co-host can't actually answer the question. But your percentages, you'll see when we share the poll, the percentage of how many people answered each question removes your co-hosts so that it's not, so you could still potentially get 100% answers, which we're almost at. Right now we're at 82 participants completed.
Yeah, I mean, you might have some, you know, someone who stepped away from their computer for a moment, so I wouldn't go for 100%, but I, you know, 75, 85 or so is probably going to be a pretty good response rate. Okay, so then either the staff person can end the poll, you know, you as the co-host can also end it. You want to agree. So if you plan to do a poll, you want to have that discussion, who's going to do what with the poll during the class, when it's going to be, who's going to do what. Okay, and then Bettina, you want to share the results? Oh, did they? So did they change it so it doesn't highlight the highest response in a different color?
Apparently, this
Yeah,
is
they
new
used
with
to.
the last update.
Yeah, they used to highlight the response with the most, or the choice with the most responses in a different color. The other thing that you as the instructor needs to know is that you will need to, so Bettina, can you do stop sharing? Now, you as the instructor will still see the results on your screen. So you are going to need to click on the X, the red X in the top of the screen to close that box. All right, that's Zoom polls. So the process for OLLI is that you need to prepare a question, either one or more questions with your response choices. Indicate whether the responses are single response or multiple responses. You can have up to 10 responses per question. And you need to email those questions to Bettina at least 48 hours before the class that you plan to use the poll, because it takes her some time to get it into your particular class meeting so that it's ready to go when your class starts. You want to plan when to ask each poll question. Again, discuss with the staff and your moderator during the pre-class when that's going to happen. The staff will launch the poll, you know, when you ask them to. figure out how long you're going to wait for responses, and share the results. You'll notice the results of this are anonymous. Okay, any questions on polls?
Not
All right.
seeing any.
All right, we will move on to our last topic, Zoom breakout rooms. And so the first thing I'm going to mention is a couple of basics, and then we will actually do a sample breakout. So breakout rooms are basically where, small groups of participants are put in their own seemingly private Zoom room. So you want to decide what your goals are to accomplish in those breakout rooms or sessions. You also want to decide whether someone needs to take notes or summarize the discussion that took place in that breakout room. I mean, you might not need to do that, but you need to think about it. You want to decide whether the results should be shared with the main room. You also want to, know if you're going to use chat or raise hand for doing that. So again, when everyone comes back, you can quickly accomplish what your goal was for having all these different breakout rooms and present the share of that all with the entire class. You want to decide how many participants to have in each room. Our experience is that probably 4 is the minimum that our OLLI students are comfortable with. It's new to people, and it's a different feeling than just asking someone to talk to the person next to them, right? I've been in OLLI in-person OLLI classes where the instructor might say, talk for 2 minutes with the person next to you. Doing that in breakouts is it's more trouble to do. It takes more time, and it can be less comfortable for people. At the very most, or least, you want to make sure that students are not surprised by having breakout rooms. When it comes to assigning people to breakout rooms, generally we recommend doing random assignments, although it is possible to do manual assignments or even to have people self-select. But for most uses we've seen in breakout rooms, random has worked best. A couple cases where it's mostly random, but then maybe there's a facilitator in each breakout room and they manually need to be put in the right room. You need to decide how long the rooms are going to stay open for and whether you're going to reopen the rooms later in that class session. And you need to decide if you're going to have a facilitator for each of those rooms and how are you going to select them? Do you know who they are in advance? Or are they going to have to volunteer themselves? They can be a Zoom co-host, so it's possible to share screen or whiteboard inside a breakout room, but I'd say generally it may be more trouble than it's worth to try to do screen sharing inside a breakout room. Okay. So Bettina, hold on a second. Oh, okay, I'm gonna do one more slide and then we'll do the demo. So the way breakout rooms work is you split a large meeting into separate sessions and give students a way to interact. It's really important to plan them in advance to be effective. So the basic steps are creating the rooms, assigning participants, opening the rooms, and then after some period of time, closing the rooms. So Bettina is going to go through the process of creating the rooms, assigning participants, opening them, so we'll all be in them for a couple minutes, and then we'll close and come back and finish up the training today.
Okay, so there are 21 participants in this meeting today. So I'm going to do 5 rooms that will have 4 to 5 participants apiece, and I am going to assign automatically. And so we're going to be in there for 3 minutes.
Okay.
All right, and you should get well, it should automatically move you into the room right now. So we'll see you in a second. Oh, actually, there's a question in chat that says, can you do a breakout room if your class is being recorded? Yes, but you need to pause the recording before you go into the breakout room. Your staff person will know this. So I'm going to go ahead and pause this recording. The breakout rooms are not recorded. They just don't, that's not a feature that Zoom has. So it doesn't matter if you forget to pause the recording. It's just a little awkward for someone who's watching the video because like all of a sudden there's nobody there. All right.
Right. So if you are the instructor in a breakout room, it appears now they've changed it so you have to explicitly leave the room at the end, whereas participants will automatically get brought back to the main room, just so you're aware of that.
So I was in a breakout room and there were 4 of us, and then the time was up and it said leave. And then I was in with Betsy. She wasn't the original 4, but now I was with 4 people, but that weren't the original 4. Was that?
I can speak to that because I know exactly what happened. Because sometimes I just go to click X, like when it says you have 58 seconds left. If you click OK, it will pop you out of the room right away instead of just closing that window. So you must have done that. I know I did that. So we were all brought back to the main.
Oh, so Beth was actually back in the main room, but there were only a few people here at that point. So it wasn't a breakout room, a different breakout room. It was the main room. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. That's a great little
I mean,
observation.
I had the breakout room window open and was watching everybody once that window popped up. And I can tell you, Beth, that your room was the first room to go back to the main room. So you had all of the same people went back to the main room before everyone else got automatically kicked back into the main room.
But I got kicked to a different group.
Well, I put you in a different group.
Okay, gotcha. I came right in talking to you. No, I did.
Sorry.
All right.
No, I just didn't know whether I had done something.
No, I did that because there wasn't any staff person or
Gotcha.
or Howard in that room. So I wanted to make sure everybody had somebody who could answer questions.
Maybe.
So Bettina, I think I'm gonna, because the OLLI staff person is going to be managing the room for you, I'm not going to get into the technical details of how to do that in Zoom. I'm just going to skip right to some additional tips we have. I mean, that's one of the advantages to having a staff person, that you don't have to worry about some of these details with Zoom. But I am going to show you one thing while you're in a Zoom meeting. So let me share my screen here.
Did you guys see my broadcasted messages when you were in the breakout rooms?
Yeah, they were in a blue box at the top of the screen. I have to say that the writing, that the size of the text is pretty small.
I agree.
I was wondering about that because it's very small when I'm typing it, but I can't change it. So I was curious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So one of the things that you're able to do as the instructor is to move between rooms. So you may want to do that while you're in the room. So if you click on breakout rooms, you will have an option. A box will pop up that will list the breakout rooms and the participants in each one. And let's say, so in this example, I'm in breakout room 1, and I can, if I click on the word leave, then I will be taken out of that room and be back in the main room. I won't be put into another breakout room. Although I could join a different breakout room once I'm there. If I want to immediately move from room 1 to room 2, I can just click on the join word next to breakout room 2, and that will take me out of 1 and put me in 2. So just so you're aware, you have the ability to move between breakout rooms yourself while they're in progress.
And so that leave or join will apply only to you. In other words, if it's on my laptop that I'm using and I see the leave, I will leave?
Correct.
Or do I don't have the ability to leave somebody else? And
Well, I mean, technically, as a Zoom co-host, you would have the ability to move someone out of a breakout room.
okay.
I don't know that we've ever had that occur. What sometimes happens is someone might accidentally drop, or someone maybe joins the class late, and they might be in the main room. Again, the staff person will be there, and that's again something you need to make sure that if someone pops out of a breakout room, either they have the option to not join a breakout room. That is their prerogative if they're not comfortable. But you also want to plan, how do you put someone back in a breakout room, or someone who joins late, where to put them, to plan for that.
Okay.
Can your staff person help with that?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And as the co-host, you also have the ability to broadcast a message. Is that co-hosts can broadcast a message too, right, Bettina, not just the host?
I'm not 100% sure on that.
All right.
I'm
Well,
always the host, so I never see the co-host screen
yeah,
when we do
all right.
this.
We'll have to try that again sometime. Okay, so I just wanted you to be aware of that. So a couple more tips about breakout rooms. So all features of a full meeting are available in the breakout room, like chat, sharing the screen. I should point out that chat, so if you're in the main room and then you go into chat, it's like starting with a fresh chat window. So the chat from the main room doesn't carry over. And,
Actually,
or does
that
it?
has changed too.
Oh, all right. Well,
I popped into a breakout room and checked on that just now. And
all right.
sure enough, it is there.
Okay, but chat, now what about chats that are entered in the breakouts? Do they get collected into the main chat? When
I did not check that one.
okay, well, we'll study
This is
up
why
on
you
it.
update your Zoom all the time, because they
Right.
change things all the time.
Virginia has a question.
Okay.
My question was that you said that typically folks are assigned randomly to the breakout rooms. But I am just thinking ahead to our class, and I think that there may be times when we want to, like in the moment, have people raise their hands, like how many people are interested in this topic? And we would assign those people to their own breakout room. Can that be done with relative ease?
Yes.
Okay.
There's potentially, I can think of 2 ways that we might do it, but that's definitely a discussion you want to have with your staff person. And do you have a moderator for your class, or you have co-instructors, right?
Yes, we don't need a moderator.
Right.
No.
So
Yeah.
that's something that, maybe we could schedule a practice session with all of your facilitators and talk about the options for that. It might be a little involved. We could potentially do it at your rehearsal, but I'd rather do it at a practice session, because so we don't, it could take too much time with other instructors at your rehearsal.
Okay.
So I'll make a note of it, Virginia, and we can talk about that some more.
And it probably will not happen actually until towards the end of the semester.
Okay.
Earlier on, I have a feeling we'll be using breakout rooms almost every session, but I think random will be okay.
Okay. And you can always, change your mind about that. But I will say, if you do want to have pre-assigned people to breakouts, it does take extra time.
Right.
And so, that can, kind of interfere with the flow of the class. Okay. You want to be, keep track of time and close the rooms at the designated time. I mean, they automatically close. So, make sure that the people who might be facilitating, get people to wrap up. You can also broadcast a wrap-up message to all the rooms. You can also manually close versus having a scheduled close for the rooms. You can reopen the same rooms later, and the same assignments will carry over from the previous session. So you can kind of keep going back to the same group of people multiple times within a given class very easily. As I mentioned, participants can return to the main room at any time. The host or the staff person can send them back to the breakout if that's what needs to happen. You can disable that option, but we prefer to give people the option to not be in the breakout room. And then lastly, we highly recommend informing the students in advance that you will be using breakout rooms. As I mentioned, we recommend assigning them automatically. It's really quick and easy. Yeah, I covered these points already. And any last questions?
Oh,
Yeah.
this is,
We did have a question from Pat, who said, I've not received the sign-up sheets for the practice sessions. I understand from the breakout discussion others have. So we'll get that back. We'll get that to you, Pat.
Right. So Pat, you are a returning instructor. You are not new to.
I'm new on Zoom.
Yeah. No. Okay. So. Okay. I sent it out. When I'm done with the slides, I'll put the link to the web page where it is. Where the sign is.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions?
this is Virginia. I was unclear on Pat's question. I'm sorry, but doesn't everybody who is teaching have a practice session where you do a sort of mock your first class sort of thing, or will only new instructors be given that? We have 3 instructors in our class and 2 of us have taught before, but 1 has not, but we'd all like to be in that practice session.
Okay, so the practice sessions, we focus on new instructors who are new to teaching on Zoom for OLLI at Duke. So once you've, and we have a whole checklist that we go through, and then you can practice whatever you want in that session. There's signups for those all next week. The sessions that I think you may be referring to are the rehearsals. Those are the week before classes start. That's the Tuesday after Labor Day through the Friday. And that is those sessions are at the time that your class is scheduled for, the day and the time of your class, except for Monday classes, and they'll be on Friday at the time it was scheduled on Monday because of Labor Day.
Okay.
Those sessions are intended to be very brief. You get to meet your staff person and your moderator if you haven't met your moderator in person or on Zoom before that. And it's only practicing like maybe just the first slide. It is not intended to be rehearsing your, any significant portion of your first class session.
Okay, all right. I had another question, and that is,
Wait, excuse me, Virginia, before you go to your next question, Diane should have been invited to do a practice session, and you and Matt could come to that practice session too.
Right.
So the 3 of you could have some time to kind of go through how the 3 of you work together. And so,
yeah, okay.
So Diane has the link to the sign up.
Okay, all right. I'll get with her. May I ask my second question?
Sure.
My second question is, when will we know how many people have signed up for our class? And of course, I guess the bottom line is whether the class has quote unquote made or not.
So we will be sending out an email tomorrow to all instructors with information about that will answer your questions. I mean, the short answer is that instructors are able to log on to their instructor portal and see their class rosters so far. But, based on past experience, it could be certainly into next week before the enrollments actually settle down. So I'd at least give it over the weekend. You are welcome to send emails, to contact people who have not signed up but who you think might be interested in signing up. You're welcome to send them information about your class to encourage them to sign up.
Okay, thank you.
And
So
we do
Howard
have
just said that you should be able to see your roster.
Oh.
You can only see your roster if you're within 21 days of the beginning of your class.
Okay.
So like I checked yesterday for a class that started on Thursday and I couldn't see the roster. Or if your class starts midterm, you're not going to be able to see those numbers in your instructor portal yet. John has had his hand up for quite a while.
Thanks. I'm returning instructor, but it'll be the first time I've had guest speakers. And did you want to talk on that?
Yes.
You're frozen.
Oh, really? So let me see. I might need to go dig up another slide for that because I don't have it as part of this deck. I mean, basically, we don't expect guest speakers to attend your practice session. I mean, if you have one guest speaker, I suppose you could invite them, but we really want to focus on the instructor at the practice session, and we rely on the instructors to contact their guest speakers. And we have this checklist that you can share with them to make sure that they have the information they need and are comfortable with whatever you want them to do on Zoom. So some guest speakers might just be there to talk, maybe an interview style, and they don't even need to be made, they're not going to share slides or anything. They just need to show up and they'll be in the Zoom meeting with you.
Okay.
Others may be sharing, maybe sharing slides or sharing videos. I mean, any number of things that you might be doing as well. Our experience is most guest speakers have been doing this for a while, and so probably don't need a lot of extra hand-holding. But we do encourage that the instructor contact their guest speaker and plan for a quick practice session, touch base before the class that they're planning to attend, maybe just a couple days before. Make sure that their internet is working okay with just you, for example, right? Because if you wait until the day of the class and they join and their internet is really bad, that's, you need to have a backup plan. Yeah. if that's something that happens. But we will include information about guest speakers in what we send out to instructors tomorrow as well, for those of you who have guest speakers.
Thank you.
Yora has her hand up.
Thanks. I have a couple of questions. One is, so when we joined the breakout rooms this time, we just automatically went into them. So is that a choice that you made? You can either have the student, okay, I don't know how to do that choice, but I guess we're not going to be doing it, so it doesn't matter.
Well, I mean, can I respond to that real quick? So if you're planning to do random assignments, that is the most efficient way to do it. If you want to pre-assign people, then there are options, there are alternatives. And if you want to explore those, bring that up at your practice session.
Okay. And my second question is how much time before the first class, you might have said this in another session, do you recommend sending an email, the introductory email to the class?
So I would say at least wait until, so if your class starts the first week of class, if it starts September 13th.
No, it starts the end of October.
Okay, for classes that start that late, I would say a week, you know, possibly. The thing is, some people may sign up for a class, you know, closer to when it starts, even a class that starts in the middle of the term. Now, there is a way in the instructor portal to see what students signed up late, because the sign up date is listed on there. So, you know, you could go ahead and send it out, you know, when you have it ready, but then make sure you go back to the portal. And if you see more people, more students signed up than before, you can figure out who to send that email to who might have missed it the first time around.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Going back to the breakout, Betsy's had a question about how do you return someone to the breakout room if they get kicked out?
So the easiest thing is going to be for the staff person to put that person back in the desired room. That's something that you need to discuss. And you need to figure out whether you're going to be in a given breakout room for the entire time, or if you're going to, you know, move from room to room. Right? Because if you're in a room, you may not notice when someone drops out of another room. That's why the staff person needs to be, you know what to do when someone pops out of a room.
So if everyone is randomly assigned, will we know which room they came out of?
No, right.
Okay.
No,
That-
but
that's
you
my
can
thought.
see, like, if you pay attention to how many people are in each room. So if you know you have 4 people in each room and there's one with 3, you know he came from that room or they came from that room.
And then the option to reassign them is if you click on breakout rooms, it will come up just like if we wanted to join or leave. Is there also an option where it will say, like, how would you do it? Like, would you click on the 3 dots in the upper right hand corner next to the participant's name? Does that give, like, how do you
When you
assign them to a room?
When you roll your mouse over top of a name in the breakout rooms window, it gives you options. So you don't even have to click on the 3 little dots. It's kind of more like the participants window. When you roll your mouse over top of a name, you can mute the person or go to more. It tells you move or assign to, I think is what the terminology is. But again, that's what your staff person's going to do. So you don't have to worry about that. We can do all that for you.
Okay. I was just kind of curious. I think it's.
I figured. For your personal preference, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. There was another question earlier that I wanted to mention. There's 2 ways that the rooms get opened. We keep talking about automatically assigning the rooms, and they will automatically open and shoot you in to a breakout room like we did today. The other option is to invite people, I think is what it's called. And that gives this little pop-up window on everybody's screen that says, you're being invited to room 4. Do you want to join? Yes or no, or something. And we found that a lot of people couldn't find that clickable button to join the room. So we found that it was easier to just automatically push them into the room. And if they wanted to leave it, they could then leave it. But giving them the option was super complicated and confusing for people. So it was just way easier to just do it the dirty way.
Right. Keep in mind that some of these features look different on iPads, and there are even some students who are joining on iPhones or Android phones. So, you know, we have to kind of plan for all contingencies. Leora, you have another question?
Yeah, I just remembered that sometimes I have an issue. I don't know if anyone else has had this, but I copy something and then like questions I want them to discuss. I put it in the chat, but it doesn't paste all of it. It only pastes like some of it. Is anyone familiar with that problem and have a solution?
I mean, roughly how much, like a whole page of, like if you were in a Word document, or just,
You know, like 3 or 4 questions maybe or something. It's happened to me many times.
Are you on a Mac or a Windows?
Mac.
I'll play around with it on my Mac and see. Are you updated to the latest version of Zoom?
Now I am, but it's possible I wasn't before. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, that's another, if something's not working quite right, one of the first things to do is make sure you've got the latest version of Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
There also, you asked a question during our breakout room session that I think we talked about in the slides, but I just wanted to
Yeah.
mention that the question was, how do you give them the questions that they're discussing while they're in the breakout rooms? And you used to not be able to see the big chat window in a breakout room. That kind of solves that problem. But we have had some instructors in the past email their questions to the class the day before so that they were prepared for what they were going to talk about in breakout rooms. So that's always an option as well.
Okay, I just put into the chat the website where the practice session sign up is.
Alrighty. Any other questions?
I think we've I've covered everything, and we're down to just a few hardcore instructors who stayed around. With last several have dropped off, but this has been another very informative, information-packed session. Thank you, Howard.
And I even learned a few things. By the way, Bettina, while it's on my mind, since I've never seen it happen until I did it.
Okay.
You're very welcome. If that happens and the instructor is sharing their screen, I would suggest, like I was sharing my screen at the time that I couldn't hear anyone.
Oh.
Right. The staff person could stop my screen sharing.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
So at least I would know something was up. I might not hear you all laughing at the time, but at least I know something needed to be done.
Okay, I'm gonna stop this recording.